Look at nearly every profession, and AI is transforming the way people work. It's helping people think bigger, build smarter, scale faster, and achieve more than was previously possible. And payments is no exception. I'm Emilia, and I'm joined by Laurene Lecomte, Director of Payments, Fraud and Risk at Backmarket, global marketplace for premium refurbished electronics, Charles Adji, who is a payments and product specialist who's worked for brands such as leading travel agency TUI, and Blessed Yahaya, Strategic Payments Partnerships Manager at Google. Together, we'll explore where AI will impact payments, the possibilities it creates, and how the role of the payment leader is set to evolve. Welcome, everybody. Laurene, I'm going to start with you. How are you using AI today in your work, and what tangible benefits is it delivering?
So at Backmarket, we have been using AI for years when it comes to fraud management or smart routing of card transactions, for instance. But more recently, with LLM, etc., we have been having new use cases. And I would separate them into two use cases. First, if the data is very structured, it's more or less an SQL++ or automation of KPI, reconciliation of transactions, populating several documents from different formats into one. So tasks that used to be done by humans, and it drives value for Backmarket because we are saving time, and this helps us focusing on more added value service tasks, right? The second use case is more about what we call Gen AI. So this would be for unstructured data or for patterns that are evolving very rapidly. So some use cases would be for fraud management, for instance, to compare messages from customers from one country to another and see patterns. If you have exactly the same message in Italy and in France, asking to be refunded of a device, it starts to be a bit suspicious, right? So this type of Gen AI is very important as well for seller churn prediction to preserve Backmarket from debt eventually. If a seller leaves the company and there are some refunds, we need to freeze the money of the wallet of the seller, so it will save us money in the long term as well. And last, Gen AI is super interesting for personalization as well. So we are customizing the experience of the customer thanks to AI. For instance, if somebody is a student, we would provide him a different payment method. And in this specific use case, we are generating more sales and therefore more revenues.
Wow, that's really fascinating. It's very clear that AI is driving real value. Now, Charles, I'm going to move on to you. If you could hand over one part of your role today to AI right now, what would it be and why?
Thank you for that. So one of the things that we spend a lot of time on is trying to understand customer feedback. So we get a lot of like raw feedback from customers around their payment experience, right? And if you look at this data in isolation or one feedback by itself doesn't really tell you much because customers are not very descriptive about what they are experiencing. For example, a customer might just say, this doesn't work. So what doesn't work and why? But if we aggregate that data, we're able to find patterns of scale, right? So normally we do that manually currently, but once we started to use Gen AI, we were able to speed up the process of finding what's really wrong with the payment experience and how we can potentially troubleshoot. The next part of what we're trying to do is one thing I would love for AI to just completely handle would be that root cause analysis. Because once you find out there's something wrong, then there are different players that you have to speak to figure out, you know, what to do next to solve it. If AI can just really, you know, from what it's learned so far, tell us, okay, the problem lies in this path, and then this is the reason for that, then we can quickly discuss the solution with our partners and then move things forward so that we can improve the customer experience.
That is brilliant. I think that's a very useful use case. And thus, what do you see as the biggest challenge? Obviously, there are huge potentials. Obviously, there's a lot of different interesting use cases. But what do you see as the biggest obstacle to adopting AI, perhaps within your function or overall?
Yeah, so as it relates to payments, right, one of the fundamental things that we see is the data fragmentation, right? A lot of payment data sits across different ecosystems, whether that's ranging from schemes or that's ranging from banks or payment companies or PSPs, as we call them, right? And that makes it difficult to build efficient models, right? Because one of the most critical parts for AI, right, systems is refined data that's able to help the AI system make good judgment, right? And then there's also the piece of regulatory ambiguity, right? Regulators are trying their best to build adaptable rules to be able to protect users and to build guardrails that guide how payment data is used to be able to build AI systems, right? Because like trust and compliance in payment is actually like non-negotiable. And then I think the final piece will be, or that I see will be the talent gap, right? Today, there's a rare intersection, right? The individuals or talents who have a rare intersection between payments and AI itself, right? So you see there are people who are so good at payments, and then there's an entirely different team that's so good at AI, right? Whether it's development of models or is in the optimization, right? So that talent gap is a potential challenge that would need to be bridged. So you would need to see payment leaders begin to develop AI fluencies, right? Or essentially we could see the reverse, where individuals who have fluency in AI usage or AI development begin to understand how payments work and how they can be an intersection of those two disciplines. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, the last point. And there is quite a learning curve, I think, also to learn how to use AI and this AI literacy. As you said, sometimes you need to opt for one model instead of the other for a specific use case.
So I'll make a running joke I make with my colleagues, right? So I've always been in payments, right? Like, I started off from payments engineering because my background was engineering. I started off in payments, building software and APIs for companies, and then I went ahead to do a master's in artificial intelligence. And like when I look back now, I'm like, oh yeah, I was sitting right at the intersection of like the most critical piece, which is payments, right, which is required by our business, and then it's like AI, which is now the frontier and which everyone is moving into. So like being able to like bridge that gap and be at that intersection is actually a requirement. So yeah.
And I also think the data fragmentation, that first point you raised, is a really big one, right? Because you have all those different players, the schemes, the acquirers, and the PSPs. So back to my point of we want GenAI to give us a root cause analysis, point it in the path to where we should go to solve the problem. But that is our, knowledge bank, right? If I present that to a partner, the first thing they'll do is reject that. They'll be like, oh, actually, let's also do our own analysis. And that takes time because the way the data is structured on their side is very different to the way we're structuring it. It's also very different to the way acquirers structuring it, right? So even if we do our best, it doesn't mean that we would be able to use AI to solve the problem for the customer. And we find ourselves still in the rabbit hole where we're saying the truth lies in this direction, but all the different partners are trying to point in the other direction. So it's a big, big problem for us.
Interesting. So it sounds like whilst the technology is advancing, some of the real challenges still remain, around talent, data governance, as you've mentioned, as well as compliance and regulation. So Laurene, I'm going to move on to you. What is the biggest opportunity you hope AI will bring to your role, to your team, or perhaps your organization?
Especially for retailers, I believe that agentic commerce is as well a big opportunity and a threat. So it's a big opportunity because it's already happening, right? There are some pilots in the US. I'm referring to Etsy and Stripe. I read a report from EY recently that was saying that 60% of US customers in mid-2025 had used agents to do online shopping. And so now that payments is available, it's going to be massive. But at the same time, I was saying that it's a threat because retailers are somewhat left in the dark, right? When it comes to fraud management, customer care, I mean, after sales service, or even loyalty programs. Like there are a lot of questions that remain unanswered. So I am optimistic. I want to see this as a big opportunity. But there we will need a lot of rules and standards, and it comes back to your point regarding data as well.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because when I think about agentic commerce, I'm very, very concerned about how this is going to impact retailers, right? Because the way of working currently is expecting the customer to land on your website, navigate your website, and then go to the payment page. But with agentic commerce, that is going to be squeezed. So it's like, do you need that many browse pages when a customer just needs a product, and you know, all of these different things will be called into question.
Yeah, I might have a totally different opinion, right? Because it's like, I don't view it from like a concern perspective. Maybe, just maybe, because we are working on, like you might have seen in the news, right? Google released AP2, which is like the agent payment protocol, right? Essentially, I understand where you come from when you talk in reference to like as a merchant, right? How like the dynamics, when I think about it, I see a lot of changes are going to happen, right? So one could be the dynamics in which you build your platform, right? How do you ensure accessibility? Now, in the past, we used to think about accessibility from like, oh, virtually impaired or people, and now you have to think about accessibility from like an agentic perspective, right? So it's like
IT, CIT, AIT.
exactly, AIT. So and then obviously there's still a lot of work to be done, right? Whether it's in we're seeing the adoption of the AP2 today, we're seeing counter protocols being developed, right? But like ultimately, when I think about it, what I see is the potential for ease that the end customer gains, right? I don't like shopping, but I really don't, right? When I'm in the shop, right, I typically have to call my sister, right, or or like a friend or someone, right? So please go, I'll shop with the sister, right? Like my friends who I know like has the knowledge from like a fashion perspective, and I ask them, hey, how does this color blend with this color, and blah blah. There's an agent now to take that off me, right? And I'm glad I could take my time and focus on something else, right? So in as much as yes, there are challenges, there are things to be figured out from fraud perspective and stuff, right? We're seeing that the system is trying its best to adapt, right? And all I can think about, right? Label me selfish on that, but all I can think about is the amount of ease that comes to the end consumer. Right?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like there is a browse problem.
Yeah.
You know, when you think about online browsing, you don't see it as a problem, but it's actually a problem because it's time wasted, and you're going from one website to another, from one product to another, comparing, checking reviews. All of that stuff is going to be transformed and changed. So yeah, the browse problem is going to go away. So customer ease is a very good point. But also, I think the way we have fraud with the traditional way of shopping, fraud is going to become more advanced now with the whole agentic commerce coming in. I mean, Google is going to tell us, of course, this approach is going to be secure. You know, there is the user intent, mandate intent, all that stuff is all well and good, but there's always going to be a way around things, right? So I'm really anticipating what the future will look like.
I feel like there is such a big gap between where we're today and agentic commerce. So if we were to kind of go back to more practical elements of payments and where we're today, what do you feel, which capabilities or what do you feel is missing today to get us that?
I think today, if I can try to tackle this question, I think one of the practical capabilities that AI can do for us is personalization. I think the pay experience can be more personalized, more targeted to the customer. You should be able to recognize who this person is and then surface the right path to pay. Because there's some customers, as you said, like they have accessibility is a big thing, right? So if this customer falls into a particular group, it might be better for them to speak to a retailer rather than actually just staying on the website and then struggling on the website. So I think personalization is something that I'm really hopeful someone will try to help us fix.
Yeah, I think a way to think about it too, like the approach, right, is if you look, so one way to think about how you can predict the future, right, is you look at the past, right? Maybe if you look several years ago and you think about how the internet used to work, right? It's like how like certain browsers could only access certain websites, right? And then there was a development of the HTTP, which essentially is the protocol for internet communication, right? And then like we see that obviously you're right, there is some gap, there are things that are going to be done, but we actually see like layers upon layers, like a building block already happening, right? Whether it's the NCP, whether it's the A2A, and then now the ACP on top of it, right? Systems are being built, protocols are being built as to ultimately how can that ease and how can we get to that state of full-scale agentic commerce, whether it's with Google's Pay for Me, right? Or like we've seen like several features being built. One of the from my own perspective, right, one of the things that I see that is still massively lacking is how are merchant systems being built today to be able to accommodate agents-driven decisions, right? So it's like today I could have a website where Blackman has website, right? I could have a website and like that website for whatever reason, right? Navigation is difficult. It's like so I would just go back a bit and give a bit of background. So I started off my career building like websites and software applications, right? I can imagine like typically when you build that, no one was thinking about the worst case scenario when you think of an agent then was like from web scrapers, right? So bots that are going to come and scrape your website to get data, right? The development of applications, whether it's web-based, whether it's Android or whatever other ecosystem, right, would change massively. There would be a consideration, and again, that's lacking today because people never built softwares or applications with that view in mind, right? But that's going to change massively because now you need to think of it too. There's a potential customer acquisition strategy lying right there. How do I build my platform to be accessible by agents versus how my competitors are doing it? If it's going to take an agent 50 minutes to place an order on my competitor's platform, how do I ensure I do this to take 10 minutes? So that's an edge. So yeah.
I can tell you're very bullish about the agentic commerce space.
But it re-challenges totally the SEO.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah. So the authentication, the authorization layer, there are also challenges there. They're ultimately going to be.
It's going to open up a lot of opportunities here and now. Yeah. Because as you were saying, there's quite a few things that have to be thought through to serve the merchant needs, to make sure that whatever Google's building, Stripe is building, the merchants can actually make good use of it. So there's going to be the opportunity now, and agentic is coming. There's nothing we can do around it. I mean, if I was going to pose the question to you, how do you feel that agentic commerce is going to impact your website in the future? How do you see that?
We believe that there is a significant share of our transactions that will go through agentic commerce in the next years. Yeah, and we are preparing for that. We are starting to rethink already our SEO. We are rethinking our payment system, to address agentic commerce. Yeah. Whether it will be you have been talking about protocols. Will it be a mandate, things like that? So you talk about standards, technical standards and SEO, and you talked about personalization. I would also add that fraudsters will also use AI. So it will be AI versus AI in terms of fraud management. And so that's another piece we have to work on.
Yeah, exactly, because the open models are very advanced, right? Like DeepSeek in itself is very, very capable. So you can really use that to, I don't know what that shape of fraud looks like, but something that will happen. And I wonder if there should also be more discussions around how would, AIs be used for bad, not just for good.
I'm loving this discussion and where it's going. If we were to zoom out from agentic commerce and go back to the role of the payment leader today, and obviously the tools that you need to succeed and to get to that North Star of agentic future, what do you feel that you need today, or like what kind of tools, capabilities, AI enablement that could help you succeed in your role today?
So I would say one of them goes back to like an original thought that we had from the very first question, right? Which is the literacy part, right? One of the critical part is AI leaders would need to be very deliberate about like acquiring knowledge, right? And in terms of like evolution, right, we're going to see AI leaders moving from just designing payment systems for the sake of it, right, and then moving to like payment orchestration, right? How exactly does AI play in the payment system that you're building, right? How exactly do we leverage AI for the optimization of partnerships, right? So if we do have a partnership with back market, how exactly what does the future look like in terms of the evolution of that relationship, right? Are they nuances that we haven't covered? Are there more opportunities that we could see for back market or for TWI or for any other partner that we have, right? So in terms of like the tools that we see, some of these tools are being developed, right? Whether it's with the LLMs, right, or like more specialized tools. An example is like where we see with like a notebook LLM, where I can essentially have an entire review of a contract in a very summarized way, right? So a lot of the tools are being developed, and ultimately, if we think futuristically, just again utopian, right? Just think futuristically, we could see a chance where how exactly does robotics play in terms of how we do our business, right? Far from just LLMs and chatbots, right? What are the other areas of artificial intelligence that tools that could play a critical role in how we evaluate payment systems or partnerships and stuff?
On the what Blessed just said, I would like to double down and just add the dimension of real time, because you talked about orchestration, and I definitely agree. Thanks to this AI insights, we will be able to drive better decision in real time.
Yeah, exactly. Right, less reactive and more proactive. You know, and to that point as well, I think that, you know, if I think about my role and what I would want to see happen, you know, we know that Microsoft is pushing Copilot, and you know, and whoever's using Microsoft Teams right now will see Copilot there. And there is a massive gap because it's very generalized. And, you know, the natural instinct is to say, okay, maybe we all need like a more specialized Copilot that is trained on your context, trained on your company data, tells you exactly what you need to know, when you need to know it, so you can react as quickly as possible, right? So that's one approach, right? I'm not sure what that will look like in terms of product-wise. I'm not sure if it's even possible. But the thing I would like to see is moving us away from this operator reactor to more of an orchestrator, where you basically are thinking about your customer in the future, not in the present, because we think a lot about the present customer. How is the experience? Is it good or bad? What do we need to fix? But we should also be thinking about the customer of the future. Like, because if our business does not optimize for the future, we will always become commoditized because there'll be more competitors coming in. So as a payment leader, you should be thinking, okay, customer of the future, what do they need? How do I present what they need to them at the right time so I can keep that loyalty high? You know, what you were saying about the company Decathlon, right? You know, when I heard that, I was so inspired. I was like, wow, I need to go to their shop, and I need to, because they're basically thinking about the customer of the future. Like, this is what payment experience should look like.
And we are talking very much about hard skills here, etc. And I believe that payment leaders will also need to have soft skills like networking and a critical mind to challenge the source of truth that is behind AI, because you can misuse or misunderstand data very easily, right? And so I also think that payment leaders will need to have this mindset.
I love that. So if I was to kind of recap what I'm hearing from you, having a helpful teammate who's really proactive, bases decisions or like informs your decisions with real-time data, comes to you and kind of guides your decision making, so you can focus on more strategic, more kind of futuristic objectives that your companies have, and ultimately focus on the customer, because that's why businesses exist, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Wonderful. So that brings me nicely to something a little bit more imaginative, and I feel like we've been doing that already. And this is an open question to all of you. Fast forward 5 years, how do you hope AI will have changed the role of the payments leader? So you have this helpful teammate, he's doing all the day-to-day for you. He's coming to you with all the proactive insights in real time, and all you need to do is just press that button, you know.
So basically, I believe that within 5 years, the job of a payment leader will move from a kind of traditional operator manager towards a strategic technology expert that will navigate between AI, finance, and customer experience.
Yeah.
As you said, way more.
Yeah, I think so too. I think like it's very easy to be pigeonholed into just thinking about payment in the present. But I think in 5 years' time, if we're more enabled and like AI powered, then as a leader, you're not just a leader within payment, you're a leader for the business. You can kind of sit across different aspects of the business. So you're almost given like the time, the bandwidth to think critically about other sides of the business, rather than just, because payment can take a big part of your time, you know, troubleshooting and reacting to this and that. But if a lot of those things can be automated, then we can look at how can we consolidate all parts of the other business and make sure everything is streamlined end to end for our customer. So I'm kind of like, I see our leadership in the future not to just be payment leader, but a leader of the business, because you then have expertise in other parts of the business as well.
And drive business value.
You're right, it's such a cross-functional role, right? It touches so many different facets of the business.
Exactly. Yeah, we speak to different stakeholders from different parts of the business, right? So it's very cross-functional. So you can collaborate better. You can actually like involve more in driving value in other parts of the business.
Yeah. Just to add to that, right? So obviously we see the scope change. Another potential hilarious area I see too is we would see role title change from like head of payments to like head of intelligent commerce, right? Because essentially like it's now more holistic in terms of like what you do. It's not just payments for payments or payouts, right? So it's now like an overview from a commerce perspective, right? How do you ensure and enable intelligent commerce, right? From personalization down to like optimization, down to whether it's fraud detection or identity, right? We're going to see cut across board, because now it's not just a decision of form of payments, right? It's a decision of how do you optimize those form of payments for the best customer? How do you ensure drop-offs? How do you ensure increase in alt rate? So there's an interesting progression, right? From a strategic perspective, from an operational day-to-day perspective, and also from a decision-making perspective. So
you heard it here first. Head of Intelligence Commerce. Yeah. I like that job description. I was just, wow, that's a nice job title. Like that, like in 5 years' time, you see us with no more head of payments or like head of Intelligent Commerce, right? It would be really nice.
I love that. Yeah. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, this is all we have time for today, but really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
I appreciate it.